Warning. Censorship. Warning. Censorship. Warning. Censorship. Warning. Censorship.
Welcome to the daily Rebel News live stream from rebelnews.com and on all the platforms, Rumble, Super U, Odyssey, and YouTube. Well, we can still survive. Matt Brevner, how are you? Welcome to Good Cop, Bad Cop.
Good morning. I'm staying dry, which is nice. My province took quite a beating over the past few days, but I'm very blessed and fortunate to say that my house is not underwater, so another day above water is good.
Indeed, and we're going to get to that story about the floods out there. We've got another Rebel, Alex Yelizarov, out there as well, struggling to get through the environment. But we want to just tell you that we are available for your paid chats to read on air. Question, comments, concerns, links to the apocalypse, Rumble rants, Odyssey hyper chats, Super U paid chats. Can't do it on YouTube. We are demonetized on there. Can't talk about elections, vaccines, mandates, anything that YouTube doesn't like particularly. Maybe you can't post a rap song if you're a certain person either. So after a few stories, we're going to go onto the alternate platform, so you can go to rebelnews.com/livestreams if you want to find the proper link, or you can follow the link in the description. Matt, the first thing we want to talk about today is the crazy Conservative Party, which you know I'm a huge fan of, kicking out somebody who just slightly was descending from the party line, Senator Denise Batters. And a senator doesn't have like a whole lot of punching power other than name and stature and position. And by that I mean all she really did was say we need to have a petition to consider reviewing Aaron O'Toole's policies and jobs, because she says she disagrees with him, pulling away from conservative talking points or policies and leaning more towards Justin Trudeau. And apparently he fired her via voicemail. Did you get a chance to read the story? Did you hear about this last night?
Yeah, I did hear about this last night. And, it's to question leadership after the loss of an election, which wasn't even really by a narrow margin. It should be standard. It's surprising to me that she's receiving so much backlash for this. Actually, it's not surprising to me based on, what we've seen from O'Toole in the past. I'm more surprised, however, the Conservatives that just seem to be acquiescing to this sort of behavior.
Yeah, it seems to be standard practice now, whether you're in Jason Kenney, Doug Ford's, or Aaron O'Toole's parties, that as soon as you step out of line, even a little bit, you're kicked out of caucus. And no disagreeing is allowed, which is, of course, supposed to be like one of these things conservatives say, this is what woke liberals do. They don't allow any discussion of any topics. As soon as you disagree with them, you're canceled. And that's what Aaron O'Toole does. He probably called her up after his jog, after he had a light beer, and he said, you know what, Denise, we don't need you in caucus anymore. We can't have any dissenting opinions. Now, what I want to ask you, Matt, is I'm sort of torn here, because before this election, where was the standing up against Aaron O'Toole's very liberal policies, pro-mandates, pro-closed border, didn't say anything about the hotels that Canadians were being forced into. He doesn't say anything against vaccine mandates for flying or train travel. Now their big stance is, you shouldn't have to take a PCR test if you've been vaccinated. Oh, very, very controversial, standing up for the already vaccinated, the 85% of people. What's your position on that, Matt? Should we be praising her for, finally speaking up, or is it sort of now that it's come to roost for me, now I'm speaking up and saying something?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just convenient. It seems like very few politicians, I can't really think of one that represents any of the major parties in Canada, speak up for things that are controversial. I think these people just spend more time focusing on major media pollsters and basing their policy and their ideology based on that. And these people are so far removed from reality that, yeah, it's a little bit ironic when certain things like this happen. Like, where were you standing up for the people, for, I don't know. Honestly don't have much sympathy.
Neither do I. Tonight, Aaron O'Toole, she says on Twitter, tried to silence me for giving our CPC members a voice. I will not be silenced by a leader so weak that he fired me via voicemail. Most importantly, he cannot suppress the will of our Conservative Party members. fair, because somebody like Donald Trump, for example, would have you in his office before he fired you. That's a notorious thing he did.
Right.
But Erin O'Toole, like, you can't even talk to the woman. She's a senator. She's in your party. She obviously has a lot of clout given her position. Talk to her, say, what are our differences? What kind of policies are you hoping for me to enact? What do you think the people want us to enact or push forward? Nothing of that. Couldn't even wait till he got her actually on the call. It's like somebody was cut from the World Juniors team or something. We can only select 19 kids, and you're great in your league and your team, but we just can't select you for Team Canada. That's the treatment that they got. In fact, probably somebody from Team Canada wouldn't even do it over voicemail. They'd probably say, call me back for a sports league. But I digress. I wanted to get into something that Sheila discovered about Justin Trudeau's policies. Speaking of somebody going towards Justin Trudeau's policies, Sheila's Freedom of Information request, you call it in the States, ATIP here, access to information. She discovered that Justin Trudeau's policies about demonizing the vaccinated were based around some sort of like psychological polling. Can we bring that up, please? I'm not sure the exact wording. But this is the wonder of our psychographic polling, I'm told, and I'd like to read a bit from that because this is the work of our research team at Rebel News, usually spearheaded by Sheila Gunn-Reid, because she knows how to actually acquire the information, what to ask, and all that stuff, and along with our research team. Psychographic poll guided Trudeau Liberals' divisive and hateful campaign against the unvaxxed in 2021. This article was written by Dakota Christensen, actually. My apologies. It would appear that the hateful and divisive rhetoric peddled by Trudeau during the 2021 federal election was not an idle slant, but a targeted strategic decision based on polling data. So Trudeau called the 2021 federal election after staff was conducting a psychographic polling that showed most Canadian trusted cabinet and were, quote, very angry with people who don't follow pandemic rules. I'd like to know, like, exactly who they targeted. So 2,002 people basically decided Justin Trudeau's policy henceforth. I mean, can you blame them? It worked. March 12th, 2021. And they spent how much money there, did that say? $150,000 of your sweet, sweet tax dollars to ask 2,000 people. I mean, you give me $150,000, I can do 150 polls, but apparently in federal numbers, it cost $150K to, send an email to 2,000 people targeted across. You could pay a polling company to do that for probably $5,000 or less, I'd imagine. I'd just like to point out. So what do you take of that, Matt, that they're basing this huge political strategy for a huge election in their eyes, and I think most people's eyes, on where the country is going to go in terms of direction of COVID restrictions and lockdowns? How do you feel about 2,000 people basically making the decision for Justin Trudeau?
Well, did we find out when the date was, when this was dated? Because
in March.
Because my initial response is they took a sample size of 2,000 people. Now, who knows who they reached within that, what areas those people were in, how old they were, whatever. And the fear of these 2,000 people, which was being amplified by global or world news, was then hyper accelerated and hyper focused upon by a massive spending campaign by all the parties and in tandem with the media, which then it's just like it creates this echo chamber where most afraid people in our society are then driving policy, and it's not actually based in scientific fact or safety or whatever else. It's like we've seen enough in the last year, Andrew, that we know that this is like the case. Like, we have a hunch that this is the case, but then to actually see something like this and be like, no, it's actually the reality, it's just very disappointing.
That would kind of be like, again, sorry to use two Trump references in one day, but that would be just like Trump saying, like, we're banning any gun restrictions across the country. Everybody's forced to ban abortions in each state. It's like basically driving your own ideology down everybody's throat and making a informed decision to completely divide the country, which is what Justin Trudeau did, and Erin O'Toole to a slightly lesser extent. What's this other thing you want to pull up, producer? Canadians think unvaxxed health education workers should be fired. Well, that's good, considering in Ontario this past month that the vaccinated and unvaccinated hospital numbers have been equal, as in people in the hospital. This is a poll for 1,600 people in a survey. Of course, the Toronto Sun, they would never be establishment pushers. The Toronto Sun would never do something like that. Majority of Canadians from the Toronto Sun means approximately 65% of a sample group comprised of 1,600 members from an Angus Gunn Reid Forum. See, that's the problem, is when the Toronto Sun's like the Conservative Party. There's certain things that they won't touch. There's certain topics that they won't have any edgy opinions on. They want to be lock and step with the Conservative Party. I mean, I'd like to point out that when all this Chris Sky stuff was going on, they used, what's his name, Rob Carbone testimony as their primary source. I mean, it's just a bunch of people in the newsroom like any other newspaper or website. There's nothing special, and in fact, I would say less special than many places. Let's get to these BC floods. Matt Brevner of Matt Brevner Studios. In the void, it looks like blank background I'm looking at there. Matt, it's very dark of you. Is this symbolism?
Well, it's a dark day in British Columbia, quite literally. You know, thousands of people are displaced. The people of Merritt are being evacuated for the second time this year. Firstly for the fires, and now for the floods. And it's just, I don't know, it's just sad. You know, there's currently no road or major highway open into the Lower Mainland from the rest of Canada. We are actually separated currently from the rest of Canada. Some engineers are saying it could take as long as months to reopen the highways. How this affects, you know, I haven't heard anybody talk about yet how this is going to affect supply or food supply in the Lower Mainland. You know, we all know that any major city only carries 48 hours worth of fresh produce in it at any given time. So not to stoke panic, but if you have an opportunity, I would suggest that you grab some non-perishables and keep them in a safe place.
Now, my distrust of the government, Matt, would say, hey, what if they possibly let this happen so that they can say climate emergency lockdowns? You guys, look at what happened, climate change. Now, I want to keep that on an open tab for anybody in 3 weeks or 6 or 8 weeks when we start looking at excuses for climate change. Producer, would it be cool if we brought in writer, marketing engineer Alex Y via phone call or Skype of some kind? You want to reach out to him? I know he's in the thick of it. He's been traveling across the country, not to, blow up his spot, but he's been stuck several times on the trip that he's driven. He was stuck in Northern Ontario. I think he was stuck in Alberta. Now he's stuck just outside of Alberta on the BC side. So I think it'd be interesting if we got him on the line. And speaking of inclement weather, Matt, I don't know how much you keep up with Canada soccer. Possibly their biggest victory, I don't know, last 30 years. They haven't been in the World Cup since, I think, 1990 or something. They won against Mexico last night. It was basically like an Arctic tundra.
That's huge.
They brought Mexico to Edmonton for the game because I think they knew it was going to be cold. Looked like a rock-hard surface. The Mexican players were freezing. And Canada took it to them for the better part of the game. They let in a goal in the last minute. But now Canada's got these guys. Alphonso Davies is one. He's from Edmonton, I believe. He plays in Germany. He's really good. They've got a guy named Jonathan David. He plays in France on the best team in that country. So Team Canada Soccer is so good right now. It's the best it's ever been, in my opinion. And it looks like they're probably going to go to the World Cup. They've still got half of their games in that group to go. But it's a good lifting spirit to have people all at this game. They're outside, they're freezing, and Canada beats a team that I don't know when the last time they beat them or if ever in qualifying like this. So kudos to them. Matt, are you thinking about going, and would you face a game in this cold weather outside? I don't know if I'd do that for a soccer game. It feels more like a football game thing to me.
Are they all in Edmonton?
Yes. Oh no!
Well,
The last 2 games were in Edmonton. Whenever Canada plays at home, it's usually Edmonton or Toronto. They might have one in BC that you can go to and report outside of. But this was after a goal when they're all diving in the snow.
Oh wow! It's so good to get some good news, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's been 2 years of just bad news. So, if Canada's beating Mexico in World Cup qualifiers, like, we really are in bizarro world right now. Like, what's
It's
happening?
true. I just watched that Seinfeld episode the other day. As we get prepared to leave YouTube, because you guys, we can't talk about the things we want to talk about coming up, which is, Kyle Rittenhouse live streams are getting pulled off YouTube. I see Tim Pool, which includes persona non grata Alex Jones. I see vaccine job listings, staff shortages, Western University, all Fauci boosters, all the things we can't talk about. So if you go to rebelnews.com/live streams or go through the link in the description, we'll be on Rumble, Super U, and Odyssey moving forward. Have we gotten a hold of Alex, producer? Okay, so we're going to get Alex to join us before we pull off of YouTube, because we want you guys in the YouTube audience to see or hear the story of Alex. Has this affected your stories with Drea Humphrey yet, Matt? Have you guys had to cancel anything? Or what do you have on the horizon out there? Are you going to go out and cover some of this stuff?
Currently, it hasn't affected us yet, but I know it will. We have a lot of friends and supporters and colleagues and professionals we support in the Fraser Valley. So we are due to catch up with them, and I'm sure we'll have more for you on that very soon. It's really sad. The damage so far is kind of immeasurable. The amount of people that have been displaced and the infrastructural damage is. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to take a lot for Canada or for BC to bounce back from this. It'd be nice to see our politicians actually step up and not just do quasi-communist things, but actually, we'll see what.
There's a house floating away. I expect to see either yourself or Drea knee-deep in a broadcast, not unlike Anderson Cooper, but unlike Anderson Cooper, I'd imagine you guys won't be faking it. Anderson Cooper, CNN, they really do get caught with a lot of fake news over the last 40 years. There's the green screen stuff. There's the pretending to be in deep water. You go back to the Gulf War, where they pretended that they were actually in the Gulf War and they're actually in a studio faking a bomb siren. That would be a good clip to come up, to bring up. But let me know when Alex is ready here. I kind of want to save this for the YouTube audience so we don't have to cut away from them and get Alex's word. Because, like I said, he's been driving across country the last week. I mean, it should have taken, I think, 4 days was the estimated time. And now we're going on, I think, day 7 or 8 he's been driving, because there's so many stoppages. And for people who don't know, Northern Ontario and Western Ontario, it's just massive. I think it possibly stretches the width of at least 2 provinces. It takes you 16, 17 hours to drive across Western Ontario. There's not a lot up there. Now, granted, there are a lot of NDP voters up there, but we love them anyways up in the country. A little confused as to why they're voting that way. But it's a great place if you've ever, wanted to travel across the country. Northern Ontario by Hudson Bay and James Bay, which I almost died on once. Story for another time. And Western Ontario as well. So, Matt, I don't know how much traveling you guys had planned, but it looks like it's going to have to be stopped for at least a while. I know in Calgary they've declared a climate emergency. If we want to bring that up before we talk to Alex there, Adam Sosa's latest story is about a climate emergency being declared by a vote of, I believe, 14-2 in Calgary. So when I mention things like the government might use floodings and people suffering here as an excuse to lock you down further, I'm not pulling this out of thin air. This is what everybody's predicting is going to happen. It's what Kamala Harris is talking about. The climate's at an emergency. And now City of Calgary votes to declare a climate emergency. 13-2 is the vote. Ward 4 Councillor Sean Chu and Dan McLean are opposed. Maybe it's worth to get them both on camera. Includes calls for the cities to accelerate its. Oh, okay. So now we see the real reason why we're calling it an emergency. We just want to reduce our. It's all an attack on the oil industry. We're seeing this across the world. Joe Biden says we got to eliminate all coal plants by 2030 in the United States, which of course Trump brought back a bunch of them. They have to compete with China on energy, even though China's suffering right now, their economy. They have to be able to produce this stuff, or else you're buying from the United Arab Emirates, you're buying from Saudi Arabia, you're buying from all these places that you're supposed to be ideologically against, especially if you're a Democrat and you're a feminist. You shouldn't be buying stuff from Saudi Arabia. But Joe Biden closed down pipelines. Governor of Michigan closed down pipelines. And now we got the city of Calgary saying, well, we're in an emergency now. And we know what emergencies mean in Canada, Matt, don't we? When you declare an emergency, it means you can pass anything without the will of the people, without a vote. So 13-2, be interesting to see what those other two people have in their mind. What are you thinking, Matt? Do you think are we going to usher in for 2022 climate lockdowns?
Well, I think the only climate emergency that's about to hit Alberta, and I don't say this lightly, or I say this with a heavy heart, is an economic emergency. How are you just going to completely, barrage the energy sector and expect people to just be okay? Especially in Calgary, where detached homes have risen almost 30% in the last year. So there's a lot of new mortgages. There's a lot of people coming in there from out of town, which means the rental markets are going up. So if we're taking away jobs, what are people going to do? This is the problem on a greater scale, which we're seeing not just in Canada with our Prime Minister, the faithful Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, leading the way on this, is this: we're conflating the climate with health, because we've already established in the Western world that in the name of health, it's okay to take away any sort of rights or safety or rights or freedoms or what have you, and safety, even if it is a frail offering of safety that we're being presented, that is more important than personal rights and freedoms. So this idea to conflate the climate, whatever is happening with the climate, with your personal health, and calling it a personal health crisis or an emergency is actually quite, if I had nefarious means, I would say that's actually quite brilliant strategy, because that precedent has already been set.
Yeah, they found something that works.
I don't personally like where it's going.
Pardon me?
Yeah, I obviously don't like where things are heading, but once we've established that, we're not accountable, our politicians, our elected politicians aren't accountable to us, and people who are non-elected officials can strike, their pens on policy that just supersedes anything that's been written in any sort of chartered right or freedom. It's very slippery slope, and it's tough to get these things back and draw the line. So yeah,
completely agree.
Here we are.
And as John Doyle says, the slippery slope is real. So before we cut away, we do have Alex Yelizarov. He is marketer and I guess chief marketing officer, I'm going to go with, for Rebel News. He does a lot of great writing. He does a lot of great events work, and he has been traveling across the country. Can we bring him in before we cut away? Special gift to the YouTube audience today before we cut away. Let's bring him in. There's Alex live. Oh, we're getting live with the plaid in video. How are you? You want to just sort of set the scene for where you are and what's happening with you? You're muted right now, Alex, it sounds like.
There we go.
There you
Classic. All right, yeah. So right now I'm in Headley, British Columbia. You can see the mountains behind me here. It's an old gold mining town. Me and my wife have been crossing the country, getting into BC, and we were supposed to be in Richmond by, I guess on Sunday. And Monday we found out that all the roads were shut down. All the highways going into the lower mainland were flooded or snowed out, or I guess just disappeared. So we posted up here in Headley, and we're just waiting for something to change, and hopefully we can make it home. We're about 4 hours from home actually right now, but with all the closures, we kind of have to sit tight and wait to see what happens.
So did I hear you say earlier today that you have to be notified when everything is opened up, or are you on some sort of like wait list to be called or something? What were you explaining with that?
Oh, well, yeah. So, we're just watching the roads on like Google Maps and stuff, but Headley is about 20 minutes from the first road closure. So we're not in an official line. We're just sitting here waiting for something to happen. But as soon as the roads open, we'll be probably the first in line to get on the roads. Although there are a lot of trucks, you can't see them here because I'm kind of tucked away, but there are a lot of trucks that are parked here just waiting for the roads to open. That's kind of all I got for you guys right now. We're just sitting and waiting to see what happens. But as far as I know, Highway 3 is the least damaged. And hopefully they can clear out all the mudslides and all the stuff that's blocking the route, because it's really the only way into Vancouver right now. There's no way in or out through the interior into the Lower Mainland.
Alex Yelizarov live reporting for rebelnews.com on the floods out west. Sounds like you might have to get a gold mining job while you're out there to pass the time. Matt, any questions you have for our good friend Alex before we let him go?
Do you see any semi-trailers or anything like that are stopped up in Headley? Any supply trucks, anything of the sort? Whoa, what was that?
Oh, that's just some other guy. So right now, we're in town, not in Headley, but yeah, I guess it's a gold miner. Not in Headley, but in just one town over where we were driving through. There were definitely a bunch of trucks just sitting on the side of the road, just waiting for something to happen. They wouldn't be in Headley, but there are definitely a lot of trucks just sitting and waiting right now. And when we were in the grocery store yesterday, what we did see was a bunch of the shelves there were pretty much empty. A lot of stuff was just missing. And we were talking to the cashier, and she said that because of the closures, there's no trucks coming in to deliver any food to the grocery store. So they're waiting for trucks to come in from Calgary to bring some stuff in. So the grocery stores here are feeling the pinch. The prices were extremely high for just basic food. So there's already a knock-on effect from all these closures, and hopefully it gets resolved soon. Oh, that's a sad image of a cow. Oh, man.
The cows,
Yeah, that's
we're
my update
looking
from
at
here.
cows being ushered out of some floods there. Alex, thanks for joining us. We hope you stay safe. If there's any major updates, please keep us afoot. I know we are hoping for the best for you to get to your new home in beautiful British Columbia. Are we still calling it that?
I guess so. I guess
We
so.
welcome you with open arms, man.
Thank you. And just one last thing. When I'm driving through the highways, hopefully they open up the next few days. I'll definitely send some photos and images in just to see the distraction on my way home.
All right.
So anyways, thanks for having me, guys, and good luck with the rest of it. Peace.
All right. Thanks, Alice. Have a great day.
Godspeed.
All right, I think we want to cut away some good shots there from Alex out in the gold mine territory, I guess. He's got a new job as a prospector, I think.
I couldn't help but think when I saw the guy on the jet ski with the cow, he's like, I told you that jet ski was a good investment.
His wife was yelling at him for years. The floods are coming, honey, I tell you. That's right, he's from the south now. The floods are coming. Get the cows. We're walking them through the river. There's got to be some sort of, like, I don't know, book of Proverbs that somebody's written that predicts cows being ushered across the water. We're cutting away from YouTube now, so if you guys want to join us on Rumble for Rumble Rants, Super U Paid Chats, and Odyssey for Hyper Chats, sounds like it's from the future because it is. Go to the link in the description and go to rebelnews.com/livestream if you need to go through that method. NoClimateEmergency.com, I think, is what we were referencing from Adam Sos and Kian Simone, aka K2 in Alberta. If we want to bring that up,